So she sang the national anthem for us beautifully a little while ago. She's a musician and a motivational speaker, and she has some words to share with us today. So I would like to introduce once again Miss Aiya Kelly. Aiya.
We did it. We did it, my friends and fellow Americans. We are a part of the revolution that is making America great again. Sometimes we may feel small and insignificant, but we are far from it. And when Americans stand up, the world listens. On the other side of the planet was a 15-month-old baby girl who lost her mother and because of that lost her family. After being passed from family and to friends, she ended up with a missionary family from our state of Oklahoma. She was with them when her mother passed away. Being born in Okinawa, Japan with Philippine citizenship, an American military father who has long since transferred back to the U.S., a highly successful life for this little girl was slim to none. As typical for true Americans whose hearts swell with compassion in such circumstances, the missionaries fell in love with the little waif. And when they were transferred back to the States after their 4-year term, the curly-headed little girl was in tow with them. Bill, now the adoptive father and a retired U.S. Master Sergeant, worked through red tape and wrote some checks and got his little charge naturalized as an American citizen. And that was right here in our state. Bill, along with his wife Carol, went the route of private education for their daughter. And every morning her school days opened up with prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance, which caused her love for this country to grow even more. This is my story and one definition of the American dream. And at this time, I want to thank every veteran and every active military individual and their families for your service. Because of you, these kinds of dreams are possible. Please stand so that we can give you applause. Veterans, active military, and their families, thank you so much. You have my gratitude. I think that was almost 2 minutes and 11 seconds. 40 years after my naturalization, I sat staring at my computer screen as Ivanka Trump introduced her father as a candidate for the President of the United States of America. And as Donald Trump spoke, my heart swelled with the way in which he spoke about our country. And I'm going to tell you, from that moment, I was on that Trump train as it came around the mountain with a vengeance. Of course, I spoke with my friends and my family about how I felt, but I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to make a real difference. I had a list. I had a wish list for what I wanted in the next president, and you know what? Donald Trump was promising to check off my wish list. I wanted ISIS gone. What about you? I wanted terrorism stopped. I wanted a border. I wanted our budget repaired. And I love your signs. I love the red, white, and blue that I'm seeing from up here. Thank you so much. I wanted our Second Amendment protected. I wanted health care taken seriously. It's been broken for a long time. I wanted our veterans cared for. And there was more tiers on that list and another tier. Lots of things that I had for my wish, but those were at the top of my list. My husband and I went to every Trump event that we could go to, and even took my parents who are in their 80s. They're right back there. They're my greatest fans and my greatest heroes. We took them along with us. We were hardcore. And I can tell by looking at this crowd today that I am among a group of people who have the same heart for our country that I do, and I love that. Thank you. So what could we do? We volunteered when we could. We got Trump signs and we handed them out. We placed them in strategic locations. We attended a Republican watch party at the headquarters in Oklahoma City. And although I was disappointed that Mr. Trump did not win the state of Oklahoma in the primaries, Oklahoma's conservatism makes me proud to be from this great state. My husband and I prayed and fasted for 24 hours for every single primary except one, and for the general election, because we wanted God to know that we were serious about changing our country and making a move back toward Him. I read that the greatest way to advertise is through social media. Imagine that. I read a comparison about radio advertising, television advertising versus social media, and also read that Donald Trump's son-in-law was heading up the social media part of his campaign and how very important that was. And so I made a commitment to consciously seek out stories about Mr. Trump and his opponent and post them for my friends to read every day. I made that commitment, and you did too, right down there in the middle. I see that. Thank you. I was prepared to lose friends, and I did. And I was prepared to have long, drawn-out conversations, and I did. But it paid off. People started messaging me and asking me questions, and one lady messaged me. She was going to be interviewed and wanted to know how to answer about Mr. Trump's issues and where he stood, and I directed her to his website. And then people would send stories to me to post because they were too nervous to post them, and they would tell me that they were voting for Donald Trump. Sorry about all this wind up here. Of course, you couldn't be around me for 5 minutes without hearing about Donald Trump. I've never missed Election Day voting since the day that I could vote. You know, it's our duty and our responsibility to help to make decisions for our great nation. Since I was going to be working 12 hours on the 8th, my husband and I were at the first day of early voting, and we voted, of course, for Donald Trump proudly and happily. But November the 8th was absolutely electric for me. I was surrounded that day mostly by Trump supporters, even though I was with a bunch of artists. And I'm afraid I would have driven liberals crazy that day. But once I got home that evening, my eyes were glued to my computer screen. I felt that the future of our country, and perhaps even our lives, depended on the outcome of this day. I wondered if the intentional destruction of our country could ever be reversed. America was headed in a downward spiral, and quickly. I must have held my breath all evening and well into the night as miracle after miracle rolled in. The numbers were rolling in, and state after state was voting for our great president. For hours and days, we were holding our breath, nervous as the numbers fluctuated. But folks, we did it. What we did last year in November, what you did last year in November, is nothing short of amazing. And every single morning you should stand up and look in the mirror and tell yourselves what heroes you are. You are true American heroes. This is something, folks, that we weren't quite sure we could pull off. There is only one way that this happened. The American people stood up and shouted. It started out as a whisper and turned into a low rumble, and then it busted out of that cage in a full roar. The world watched Americans put a halt on political correctness. It watched the sleeping giant being awakened. It watched the gentleness of the American people put on a high shelf just for a little while. It watched the spirit of our forefathers come alive in their graves. And it watched the loyal blood pumping through our veins start pumping hard again. Friends, I'm not telling you anything that you didn't already know. Our country was on the edge of a precipice, with no time left to be saved. Our churches are in a mess. Our schools are in a mess. Our homes are in a mess. Our youth have no direction. And it's a sad day, but you know what? We are on the upward track. During the months of the campaign, America and the world started changing. CEOs started having changes of hearts. International leaders got the case of the nerves. Police officers and military personnel started getting back their pride and their courage. Our citizens started walking with straighter backs and squared shoulders, and liberals started worrying. Hope was in the air. Donald Trump started his presidential work long before the inauguration and even before he was elected. I cannot tell you my elation when I found that my husband had gotten tickets for us and for my parents to attend the inauguration of my newest hero. You guys can touch me later. George Kelly sprang into action the day after Donald Trump won the primaries and got on the list for the inaugural tickets and even made hotel reservations. Now that's faith. But we were contacted by an office from D.C. just 10 days before the inauguration, long after I had given up hope of attending the inauguration, and it was absolutely surreal. Folks, I stood on that grassy lawn in front of our nation's Capitol building and wept through the entire ceremony. To hear the hymns and the biblical references and the honoring of God, the respect to our military, and gratitude to us, the working American people, was more than I could take in a sophisticated manner. If you were there, you heard the crowd roar in approval when our new president spoke. And you also heard them drown out any negative talk by other speakers. It was amazing. And when I left, I told my family, I can die now. The battle's been won and Donald Trump has been sworn in. I was certain without any doubt that President Trump would make great changes and strides as our new president and leader of the free world. Relying on my observations of past presidential changes, I was thinking that we might start to see some changes maybe at the end of his first term, because I know there'll be a second. But you know what? He has taken his position by storm. In the midst of withdrawing from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, clearing the way for the Keystone Pipeline, for which he ordered that all equipment and supplies that can be made in the U.S. will be made in the U.S., signing an executive order to ban travel from 7 nations that are current threats to the safety of our Americans, ordering construction of the Mexican and American borders, pushing aggressively to deport undocumented workers who have committed crimes, choosing Neil Gorsuch for the open seat on the Supreme Court, presenting a plan of his own to defeat ISIS and giving the military 30 days to try to come up with a better plan, issuing a new sanction directed at Iran, speaking with more than 30 foreign leaders, working towards repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act. He garnered praise from the leader of our greatest ally, Israel, dealt with transgender restrooms, honored our fallen heroes, gave respect to a Navy SEAL widow, invited for the first time in the history of the Green Berets for new recruits to come to his office and have his picture made with the president, garnered praise from Ted Cruz for the reduction of 50% of illegal border crossings in Texas, was under budget in his first month by $12 billion and so much more. He hit every single thing on the top of my wish list. Most endearing to me is the effort that our president makes to honor members of our military. I watch with tears as he salutes each Marine that's standing his guard. Guys, that's something new, isn't it? And most touching were his tears at the inaugural parade as disabled veterans paraded by. Our president has a family who deserves and has his pride. How ironic is it, and what a breath of fresh air, to have the First Lady, a naturalized citizen, to be one who openly honors God. An icon of beauty and fashion worldwide, Melania shed tears during a rendition of How Great Thou Art and opened a speech with the Lord's Prayer. Friends, we cannot be more blessed. So we have definitely arrived, but our work is not finished. We cannot become complacent now. Just this week, I read that a well-known television personality who strongly supported the last 2 Democratic presidential nominees is considering running for president in 2020. One of our former leaders has accepted the role in leading the resistance against our president. We must continue our efforts and our fight for the freedoms and the rights that we have been afforded. We must be brave and strong in our battle against wrong. With the rioting and mayhem going on in various parts of the country, President Trump suggested that we, the people, respond with American rallies, and you are flexing your muscles in this fight by attending this event today. You guys are going to make me cry. Although it can be exhausting, keep the conversations going about the success of the Trump administration. Be loud and be proud. Stand up when you see wrong taking place. Be vigilant, continue doing good, and do not become weary in helping those less fortunate among us. Use social media to further the cause of liberty and teach your children to honor and to respect our flag. Pray daily for our leaders and seek God's will in your role as leaders, because we need good leaders. You are all modern-day heroes. Please stand at this time and give yourselves a hand in this amazing success for America. Let me hear it for you. Give America a hand for winning again. Give President Trump a hand in appreciation for his efforts and sacrifices. And finally, a big hand for God, who continues to bless America in spite of our faults and failures. Thank you so much, Shauna, for this opportunity and for your tireless energy in organizing this great day. Thank you to my family members who are here and who always support me. Thank you to each of you for joining us today when you had a million other things to do. God bless you all. God bless the United States of America. And as a true American hero, Todd Beamer shouted on that fateful day, September 11, 2001, let's roll!